Why is social services trying to take your baby?
Because his parents can provide for her better than I can. We're living with his parents right now, and I haven't bought diapers, formula, nothing.
You mean the two of you were living with his parents?
We're living with them right now. We had planned to have a house by Christmas, but when I got fired, I didn't have the money to do so.
What kind of job does your husband have?
He works with his dad part-time doing carpentry. So,
what does he do with the other part-time?
Stay home. He hasn't been working. I haven't worked since I was fired.
And when were you fired?
I was fired on December 2nd. That was when I told the owner that I wanted to work for the weekend. I said, can I work with you through the weekend? He just told me, he said, no, come and get your paycheck. And when I got there, that's when he didn't actually tell me that I was fired. He told me that he did not need help anymore. This was on December 2nd. But yet I've got a newspaper dated December 3rd, December 10th, and February 4th, where he is dying for help. He says a fast-paced restaurant, pizza person, and a hostess cashier. That was my job. So he said, I've got these newspapers if you want to look at those.
I believe you.
So like I said, I mean...
Are you related to the owner of this restaurant, sir?
No. I'm a friend of him.
Friend of his?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me your version of the events after you met the plaintiff?
Okay, well, like she said, I did pat on the back, like, for a good job. Oh, she's doing good in the beginning. And about the other part, the kitchen's pretty small in the restaurant. It is pretty tight, and she was told a few times to stay away from the kitchen. Just for, like, accidents, you know. I mean, I handle hot food, whatever, so I turn around, and I had the people right next to me. So I can't avoid touch somebody, because I can see on my back. I just turn around, and the person is right there.
Right. So what you're saying to me is that maybe you couldn't avoid touching her because it was so small in the kitchen.
If I did touch, it was an accident. There's no meaning on it.
Now, you see, Mr. Castro, you have to start to think logically. Miss Robinson needed a job, right?
Yeah.
She came to work on time?
She did.
And she didn't leave early?
No.
And she didn't call in sick?
No.
So she was, in that way, a responsible employee.
The thing is, we never tell her we don't need you anymore. All right? We never tell her she was fired, or we never tell her that she...
You just didn't give her hours?
Well, we cut her hours in order to try somebody else, because we couldn't try somebody else when she's working.
Your Honor, my hours were cut from 40 hours to nothing.
Who were you?
I worked there.
And,
just a second.
She worked with us, and she can tell you
Nobody ever had 40 hours there.
She needed the job. She has a child to support. So she was uncomfortable, and she called your boss. And you acknowledged that she called the owner, correct?
The owner told me that, and...
Good.
That she called.
That she called and complained?
Yeah. So
okay.
I talked to her.
You're Beth?
I'm Beth.
Well, step up here for a second. Now, Beth, when were you hired by this restaurant?
At its inception.
So about 2 weeks before she started?
More than likely. I don't remember exactly how long I'd been there when Dana started.
Couple of weeks.
I do remember the first night that Dana worked there.
Shh.
And...
Just a second, I'm not finished with my question. What was your job?
My job is also to run the register. So when we have one behind the register, the other one could be on the floor if there were two of us. But there's really only, at this time of year, room for one person there. It's not that busy right now. However, is trying to find people who he can trust, who get along well with his other workers.
Don't tell me what he's trying to do.
That's all. That's why he doesn't give anyone 40 hours.
All right. Now.
She never gave 40 hours anyway.
She got 40 hours. How many hours did you work when you were there?
38.5 hours the first week that I worked there, and I talked to the owner's wife, and she said that was written on my check, was 38.8 hours.
Okay. Now, how were you hired for this job, Beth?
Well, I worked with a restaurant that is, well, the area we live in is really seasonal. I started the day that another restaurant opened down the road in Glenville.
Who did you know?
And I worked until it closed.
Who did you know to get this?
I've known him for years.
Okay, and that's why you were hired?
Partly.
Okay.
A lot of people know the owner.
Did you know the owner?
Yes, I had a seasonal job at a country club, and he come down there to help us one day. I worked in the kitchen there with all men, never had a problem with sexual harassment.